Hello, this is Toddifons. So I'll be talking about the upcoming standard banner, the one featuring Kal'tsit and Shining. So both for the tower medics. So yeah, just a very big disclaimer. I have not used any of them much except for Kal'tsit because I don't own any of them except for Kal'tsit and Sesa. And Sesa I have never used him, so I have literally never used any of them except for Kal'tsit. So yeah, this will be fun. Yeah, I guess I'll just talk about like my first impressions of them as well as like what my friends have told them about them, I guess, and also based on what I've heard from other creators. So yeah, I guess first we'll talk about our favorite wife, Kal'tsit. I actually do quite like it plan to be honest. Simplicity of it, it's just simple enough. Don't need to do much. I actually like the design. So especially made Kal'tsit. Yeah, I have a thing for mates. Things for Sims. Yeah, I have a thing for a lot of stuff. A lot of outfits. You're not gonna question it. So Kal'tsit is a medic, but it's very much alive, at least for the most part. But so the entire thing gimmick about Kal'tsit is that, you know, she has monster that she can summon. And the monster itself should cost, I believe, cost 10 DP onto Kal'tsit's 20 DP. So if you want to summon both of them, you need 30 DP, or actually less if you have potentials. Pretty sure if you have potentials, but 30 is a good idea to play it off. So yeah, you can summon monster which have 25-second cool redeployment time. It's actually 35 at E0. It's increased like each of them. And the reason why I say there's the Kal'tsit being a medic ally is this. She'll prioritize healing herself and master. So unless both of them are at max health, Kal'tsit will not heal anyone else. And then another part for monster you think of is that monster's defense is reduced to 0 if monster is not within Kal'tsit's range, which isn't too hard for the most part because she does gain like extra range tiles as you promote her. So it shouldn't be the hardest thing in the world. And even if Master's defense is 0, Master has already high enough health that Master can usually survive like 1 or 2 hits before dying and stuff like that. So generally, even if you drop the defense to 0, it isn't the worst thing in the world. So yeah, the thing is that while Master is defeated, so like killed by enemy, can't retreat it. Basically, Master will just explode and deal true damage as well as stunning the enemies for 3 seconds. I believe that's like a big thing about why you need port 5 for high CC because of the extra 0.5 seconds apparent, or like the extra stun. I'm not sure how true this. At least that's what I've heard like on passing. I know my friends didn't mention anything about this stuff like that, and he actually plays high risk, so I don't know. I do say high risk, but it's like 20-ish for me. He still haven't been able to clear any 30, but you get the idea. It goes for a higher risk than me because he spends more money in the game than I do. Yeah. Uh, so there's this video about it. Yes, I just directly talk about. Talk about the stats first. Her attack is actually not that high compared to like other medics. That 30-ish. There is a 30 difference. It's actually somewhat lower than like other medics, which I guess isn't the worst since for the most part you'll be focusing on monster, not on Kal'tsit herself, as you can see from the skills. But yeah. So I guess I'll talk about first skill, which is actually a nice skill to learn off. Like learn about monster and how to utilize monster itself. I would say it doesn't provide any other benefits other than the defense as well as dodge on Kal'tsit herself, but it's actually quite a nice skill to have for you to learn about like monster, the defense dropping and stuff like that, and how monster is buffed and other stuff like that. It's not a good skill per se in general use, but it's a good introductory skill. Same as I was talking about for United Skill 1. But yeah, I mean, if you want, I guess the physical dodge can help out against Patriot. Like the Patriot's phase 2, there's the like the spears from hell, that rains off from the sky. I guess it can be helped. The increased defense as well as the dodge can help Kal'tsit to survive the few hits. But you'll usually be using Master in the first place, and Master has been deployed after Kal'tsit. So generally the spears will be targeting like Monster itself already. So I guess so. It's not a bad skill per se. Just there isn't much use for it. So yeah, it's more or less about skill 1. Guess I'll move on to skill 2. Yeah. Where increase the Kal'tsit's attack speed. Notice you increase it by 60 and increase even more. Yeah, even more by 100. Double attack speed and entry. Okay. Increase it even more at mastery 3. Master's attack increase, as well as the master can attack to enemies equal to the block count, which is actually very good. So basically master becomes like a AoE guard that actually does even more damage than them. Because on top of the already very high attack, 120. Actually, I'm just bring up to max E1 because that's how I've been playing her. I have the materials to promote her actually. I already have the materials to promote her. I just haven't promote her. Since the electronic components thing that you need to promote her to E2, I've only have 5 for them. So I'm still haven't decided whether I want to promote her or Mudrock since both of them use the components. So yeah, you kind of on the edge right now, but yeah, the max E1 is how I've been playing my Kal'tsit right now. So yeah, even then the attack is already very high. So yeah, you basically turn monster into a AoE guard that has even more health and even more attack, as well as actually like basically like health healing attacks. I guess we'll talk about it. Monster, I haven't talked about it. Yeah, monster is still considered a summon, so monster cannot be healed by like other medics, except for Kal'tsit because of Kal'tsit's talent. So yeah, I mean monster can still be healed by like passive regens, stuff like that, like Perfumer's talent, Skadi Auto's talent, trait, not talent, like Skadi Auto's trait, stuff like that. But other medics like Shining can buff. Okay, I'll talk about the buff. But yeah, cause Master is still considered ally, but yeah, like Shining can buff but cannot heal monster. If you get what I mean. So yeah, but generally it's not that useful, not that concerning cause Kal'tsit herself actually does have provide quite good healing with the skills and stuff like that. Or Master just have that much stats that generally it won't take that much damage. But so generally isn't going to be much of a concern, but it's still something to useful to know of, especially if you haven't E2 her, since her attack is much considerably lower. So yeah. But yeah, basically skill 2 just makes monster into a stronger AoE guard that has priority healing. Because of talent, yeah, but yeah. It's actually a very strong skill. And from what I've heard, is to be like the general skill that people go for. So even for myself, because I haven't E to her, but it's the general skill that people go for. Even my friend has been found her to be very useful in IS. Because since like in the early game where you don't have that much like operator choice, having a medic that has a 3 block defense, 3 block. Master has 3 block in case you guys are not, in case are unaware. So basically, even at E0, Master still has 3 block. So I just thought you guys should also know about it. But yeah, it's actually very strong. The only thing that I will say that is drawbacks the both of them is the attack speed. So yeah, the both of them have relatively slow attack speed. But otherwise, it isn't really that big of an issue. So let's talk about the skill. The skill is tied to monster. You guys can probably read it. So that unless monster is deployed, Kal'tsit will not regen SP. And that's only the case for skill 2 and skill 3, not for skill 1. So yeah, a very strong skill. if anything, it's also the general skill that people go for. But against bosses and certain scenarios, skill tree is still used more. Or skill tree. Master gains increased defense and attack that gradually decays to 0% over the skill duration. So as well as the fact that it will convert all damage the master do to true damage. So yes, nice. That's like true damage. So meaning it ignores defense or arts or stuff like that. It's just attacks pure. Just the damage is applied directly. I don't think there is there isn't like a thing compared to type here. So another thing is that if master doesn't kill any enemies within the skill duration of 18 seconds, master will immediately lose 50% health when the skill ends. So yeah, I mean it isn't too bad. If for some reasons, I guess you can probably use it to time the for the explode for the nuke, because it is considered considered a master being defeated. So yeah, I guess if you want, maybe you can time it for the stunning. But if you want to stun, there's other operators that's better in that sense, like click, stuff like that. So this is usually a drawback, but in certain cases can be a benefit for the nuke, I guess. This is what my friend tells me. Like the nuke from skill tree has helped her, help him out in IS against a boss, because he cannot one cycle the boss with monster's skill tree. So the nuke was actually useful, I guess. Something I don't know, to be honest. It's just what he told me. I haven't experienced it myself. I don't quite know, and I haven't heard any content creators or any like forum stuff that are talking about it. It's, everyone can come to the consensus that it's actually a drawback. But apparently, in one situation, it's a benefit. Sure, I guess. But yeah, basically the boss killing skill that people are talking about. Basically, it's the true damage, so you can actually burst down Patriot already, even with this skill. But the only thing I'll say is drawback is probably the duration. It's only 18 seconds or 20 at entry. It's somewhere in between. It's like it's not that long, neither is it like very fast. But it's not too long nor too short like that, but it's kind of like an in between. But at the same time, it can be quite long, which since most bosses have a lot of health, so you may not be able to like kill it in one cycle in 20 seconds if your level or skill rank is not high enough. So yeah, basically the skill that a lot of showcases you see, that basically most of the Kal'tsit showcase out there is all from skill tree, which is for good reasons. The amount of damage that Kal'tsit can do, not Kal'tsit, monster can do is very high with skill tree. So yeah, but Kal'tsit is by no means, so Kal'tsit is actually a very strong operator. If anything, I'll actually recommend most people to actually get her. I guess if you want to actually get her, which I am pretty sure this the banner is actually a lower rate than the limited banner with Scouter and Kal'tsit, the limited banner doing other types. Pretty sure the rate is lower to get Kal'tsit than from that banner, but if you want to, she's not going to be a bad operator to get. I think I'll highly recommend people to actually get her and play around with her, because what she provides is very unique, yet at the same time also very useful. So yeah, skill 2 general use, skill 3 is basically boss killing. Yeah. Let's move on to shining. So yeah, it's an actual proper medic this time. So for the talent, allies within the attack range, which is this, basically Kal'tsit easier, gains increased defense of 60 and 65 at mastery, not mastery, potential 6. Not bad, but okay. And then the second talent is just attack speed, which is actually very useful. So yeah, I guess I'll talk about skill 1, where increase attack and attack speed. It's generally not that useful for skill compared to like the other skills, where skill 2 provides like the shield, skill 3 just provide massive amount of defense buff, but there is one usage for it. Let's call him my friend. My friend actually did use shiny skill once for his for the stupid thing I was doing, where I was trying to use Seta skill 3 to kill Patriot, like both phase 1 and phase 2 without ever retreating Seta. Yeah, you right, I did that. And in that situation, where in that situation, the attack and actually the attack speed and extra attack that the skill actually gives is actually somewhat useful. Sometimes the yeah, I don't know. My friend just kind of has fun, just does kind of do whatever he wants to do. To be honest, in the game, especially since he doesn't play any other games. To be honest, he doesn't play Reverse Starlight with me, so it's kind of sad. But yeah, he just kind of do whatever he just kind of do for fun. To be honest, unless he's playing CC, like outside of CC, where he's trying to go for as high of a like risk as he can, even though he's actually not that smart. But he actually only there at 20 plus. I mean, he can probably get higher risk if he actually go look up like how other people kill and just replicate it. But he doesn't want to. Even for a lot of the other stages, he just brute force his way. Yeah, he just brute force his way, to be honest. So he's not the smartest. But he's having fun, I guess. There's nothing wrong with having fun. Arknights is a game. So yeah. So yeah, I guess the skill 1 is actually very useful. If you're just trying to keep one unit alive against that high amount of damage, so where the defense buffs that the other skills give is not that useful. So niche, but yeah, just a very niche skill, but it's a good skill to introduce people to, especially if you get shining as like your first 6-star when they're just starting on the game. You don't have to worry about the defense buff or anything. Just know that he heals a lot. It's kind of good, I guess. But yeah. And then skill 2, where that he can hold charges. The next shield will grant a shield to the target that lasts for 3 seconds, and the shield can absorb damage equals to 35% of Shining's attack. And additionally, the shield will increase the target's defense by 35%. So yeah, so the shield can absorb damage, physical damage, or just straight damage. Okay, nice. So the shield can just absorb damage equals to 35% of Shining's attack, which isn't that much. But I'm pretty sure which isn't that much per se, but it's useful, I guess, against bosses. Or 50% at M3. So if anything, my friend has been telling me that mastery training the skill 2 is actually very necessary. I can kind of see why. Extra even more defense. Oh wow, the defense jump. Okay. I can give you a lot more extra defense as well as tanking a lot more damage, as well as holding one extra charge. So I guess in that sense, yeah, actually M3 is actually very useful. M1 doesn't give much, so it's actually a big investment. But yeah, the skill is actually the general skill that people go for. It's actually very useful in general content, just absorbing hits, increasing defense, allowing your like defenders or even just sniper stuff like that to actually survive a lot longer. So yeah, actually very useful. A very strong skill, just that against like bosses is generally overshadowed. If actually yeah. I'm pretty sure Shining from what I've heard, the skill 2 and skill 3 is very important for like for like arc buffing, because arc damages them. So the shooting can actually absorb like the arc's attack if you get so as well as further increasing the defense, allowing them to survive like the arc's attacks. So yeah, actually a very good skill. And then skill 3, where where Shining increases attack as well as heal all allies within range gains extra plus 60 defense or 100% defense at M3. So yeah, actually a very strong skill when you want your operators to survive hits against bosses, especially against bosses. The increased defense on top of if I'm not wrong, the 100% defense is on top of the 60 defense. So like for see your operator has 100 defense. You give them 60 defense, and then after you apply the 100% buff, it's on top of the 60 already. So you gain an extra 160 for the operator. So the operator has 320 defense. So a very good skill. The only thing I'll say is the SP cost. So it's actually faster for you to retreat Shining and then redeploy her for the skill tree. Yeah, but a very strong skill. Just that my friend haven't really used the skill tree much. The only time he used it was against the hammer boss. Yeah, because of the risk he took, the hammer boss and the arrow boss stuff like that. He used the skill tree to actually help his defenders to survive. I'm pretty sure he was using Hoshiguma against the hammer boss. So he helped the Hoshiguma to survive. So I guess that's useful, but it's just it really isn't too necessary to be outright honest, the defense buff. Since right now we have a lot of like damage base, so unless you're going against like CC, you can basically kill the boss or enemies faster than you actually need to tank. Just like right now there's Surter, Chowter, even some of the older ones like Silverash, Aya can actually do a lot of damage by themselves. So generally the defense buff isn't really that necessary. So yeah, it's kind of what I feel about Shining. Just not that necessary. I mean, it could be useful if you have like lower build teams, but yeah, by no means bad. Just has since fallen out of favor, I guess. Now I'll move on to the next operator, Toddifons, who I actually don't have more pros out, so I actually have not anyone from the Siege archetype. But if anything, the smugness. Look at the smugness. Today is supposed to be a Waven. Oh yeah. So yeah, Toddifons. Okay, wait, is it? Yeah, 100% sure. Okay. Toddifons. Where Siege. So she has a very weird range tile. She cannot attack anyone like within the few tiles of her, but then attack like very wide tile afterwards. You get what I mean? I can just actually just look at it here, but yeah. So kind of a bit weird to play, especially she targets enemies of the highest weight class. The enemies have weight class. I'm pretty sure you should know that quite well with like stuff like the shifting mechanics when you're trying to shift like the enemies. Certain enemies cannot be shift stuff like that. So yeah, she'll target the enemies with the highest weight class. So being the enemies that are the most resistant to shifting. By no means a bad. It's a trait that is by no means bad, except since the fire her attack is already. So even though against like enemies with fire defense classes, she would actually still do good damage against them. Just that, you know, generally enemies with the highest weight class are also enemies with the higher defense. She is physical. It's means not the worst. She can kind of have her to target down like the higher defense enemies, and then the enemies with lower like defense rating, you can leave it to your other operators like your NTS sniper stuff like that to clear out the wave. I guess that's how I'm pretty sure Hyperglyph intended her to be built, but in most cases it's not that good. In most cases, yet the trait is something you need to work out. You need to constantly like have it in the back of your brain to constantly work around or work with, I guess. But yeah, that's about it, I guess. I really won't know, to be honest. Like I said, I don't have neither her nor Rosa, so I haven't played with anyone of the Siege archetype yet. So yeah, so the trait where against Sakas enemies reduce additional damage, which isn't that bad to you because a lot of like enemies are actually like you wouldn't consider to be Sakas are actually Sakas enemies. Like the Hammer Boss and Bow Boss from the CC5 as well as the Mariner event, which should be getting everyone in the upcoming months, are actually Sakas enemies, in case you did not realize, in case you did not know. So a lot of like the big bosses are actually Sakas, if I'm not wrong. Patriot is one, Patriot is Sakas, Mudrock, like a lot of like the stronger enemies or like boss or mini boss class enemies are actually Sakas race of the Saka race. So the actual additional damage will actually go a long way against them. Especially most of them will actually be of the higher weight class. So she will be more likely to target them as well. So if anything, the talent is actually a very good benefit for her. So yeah, moving to skill 1, where it's manual trigger. So for 29 SP, and for the next 25 seconds, she'll attack and mark an enemy unit and prioritize heavier and sarcastic enemies, which will increase the taunt level as well as decreasing the defense. And for also the attacks against it will actually be, and then her own attacks will do 150% physical damage again for the next 20 seconds. Which is actually very useful. It's defense buff. I guess it's not that rare. It's actually there is a lot of operators who can defense buff, but it's actually very useful. Like I said, especially since most of the time the heaviest enemies are actually enemies with a higher defense rating. So actually dropping the defense will allow her and other operators to deal more damage. And so the fact that you're going to targeting prioritizing them. So maybe was certain times where the enemies with the higher weight class is like the biggest threat. Since like the enemy with the lower class, they're already going to be infinitely stored by the defender. So you're much rather clear off like the higher weight class enemies first, so that you can work on like the lower priority enemies. So if you get what I mean. So the taunt will actually help ensure that the enemies get burst down. So it's actually a very good utility skill. Yeah. It's not a good skill, but it's very good. It's very good for utility. Against like those specific situations, they're actually very good. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about skill 2, where it's actually ammo based. Yeah, gain 10 arrows, ammo based skill, which I'm pretty sure is actually affected by Chowder's talent, the frugality talent. Where so it actually is beneficial for her. But yeah, so it's many. Yeah, so where she increased her attack interval, which is actually already quite long, from 2.4 seconds to 2.7 seconds. It's actually quite long, but it's not that bad per se. To be quite honest, could be worse. So yeah, she fires. So the arrows that she fires will do 210% damage. It's like exploding after a short duration after they hit the enemy, which deals additional damage as well as to the nearby enemy. So why I say the skill 1 isn't too useful is because her attack is already very high by itself. 845, especially when attacking Sakas, you do additional damage. So for the most parts, the skill 1, the defense debuff, is actually not necessary. So you much rather use skill 2 for the big damage, 10%, as well as additional 70% afterwards to actually damage them already. To actually just burst damage down the enemy. So for my friend that does have her, because he spent money, he basically opened up his wallet to ensure that for him to ensure that he gets every single operator. I did not do that. I don't have the money to do that. He's like older than me, so that's how he's already working. So that's something I guess. But yeah. So basically skill 2 is gonna be the general skill that people go for. It's just very strong physical damage. It's a lot of physical damage. That's just her. So yeah, a very strong skill. Just that, like I said, she is somewhat hindered by enemies with very high defense, like Patriot, Phase 1 and stuff like that. But against most enemies, she will actually do good damage against them because of how high a base attack is already, as well as the damage modifier of 210% and even more from the talent. As well as the fact she gets 95 attack on top of the already high attack for my trust. So yeah, actually a very strong operator. I'm kind of sad that I actually did not get her, to be honest. I tried pulling for her on Passengers Banner. I did not get her. When I got Suzuran, I was already happy enough. Yeah, I did not get her, so that's something. That's that, I guess. So Sesa. I actually have not used him, but yeah, he's an AoE sniper, like Meteorite. I'm pretty sure that video should be uploaded before this one, because I did record it before, so I'll do it that way. But yeah, so AoE sniper or grenadier, as they call it right now at EN, or splash and CN apparently that's what they're called. But yeah, a grenadier. So yeah, this really isn't that much. You should already know from AoE snipers. You should have catapult. You should have played around with them already. There really isn't that much to talk about. So yeah. When deployed, all block enemies receive additional physical damage. So he's kind of like the counterpart of Skyfire, which I've talked about in the other video. I'm probably not going to bother linking it. But yeah, when deployed, all black enemies receive additional physical damage. Which you will see what I mean by his kit is about you blocking. Because of skill 2, attack chain to firing a time delayed grenade, dealing damage and exploding and inflicting attack speed down to the target for a few seconds. The thing is, the fire is actually like to the ground and not to the. It's like spawned onto the map and not onto the enemy. Like Toddifons skills. So I'm pretty sure there's like a video out there of like the enemy just running through the delayed grenades. So yeah, it's very bad in that sense that he can miss, but that is not what he's built for. You're supposed to be blocking enemies, as the talent states already. You're supposed to block the enemy so that the skill 2 can actually do damage. Like get the most out of skill 2. So yeah. So yeah, it's actually very useful against bosses as well. The skill is actually very useful either for you to clear crops because of the high damage they can do with the skill. You just clear the crops or the weaker mobs, or even against bosses. You're actually decreasing the attack speed of the boss. Means a lot of bosses only have very low attack speed, so the dropping by 20, if you decide to M3 him, can actually go a long way by delaying the attack speed of all these low bosses for like half or more seconds. Which can mean whether your operator survive or not. That one additional healing that your operator can get from your medics can actually make or break it. You know what I mean? So even it's useful, just that for the most part, W will be more useful. W stunning, you know. W just stunning will actually be more useful than just Sesa's attack speed drop. So yeah, Sesa is kind of like the case of being overshadowed by, especially since W also does have a damage modifier, like damage boost skill. But he does where like stun enemies receive more damage. So basically W is just kind of like a better Sesa, I guess, if you want to put it that way. In most cases, yeah, it's kind of sad, but yeah. And then skill 1 is just standard attack increase for 30 seconds. I mean, it does a better uptime than skill 2, but it's not that much. If you're going to be using Sesa, you'll be using skill 2. So yeah, skill 1 is just kind of there as is. It doesn't have much to talk about. There's no like specific niche like Shining skill 1 has, sadly. So kind of just ignore skill 1. But skill 2 does have its own niche, but just in most cases W is better, unless the boss is stunning like Force Nova, I guess. But Force Nova is the attacks are not the only, it's the delete button that every few seconds she does. So at the same time, Sesa doesn't help much in that scenario either. Yeah, Sesa is kind of bad to be honest. I mean, I kind of hope they can actually be better, especially with how cool looking he looks, I guess, to be honest. He does actually look very cool looking. Just, yeah, kind of disappointing, I guess. If anything, his attack is actually lower than Joyce even. Just kind of dead, I guess. If you really want like a 5-star AoE sniper, go for Meteorite. Meteorite is just generally stronger than, in all but one cases, stronger than Sesa. Sad, I guess. I'll move on to the next one. Reed, who is a DP on Q Vanguard, also known as Charger apparently. But DP on Q, and then you get a full refund of the initial cost upon retreating. So yeah, you know, full of 12. So you gain back the 12 DP when you deploy or when you retreat. So subsequently it costs more, like 14. You still when you retreat, you still only get back the 12. So yeah. Actually a very nice archetype that I like, to be honest. It's kind of like in between a guard as a fast boy. I generally that's how I use my attack DP on Q Vanguards. Early game I use them as a Vanguard, and then afterwards in the late game I use them as like a hybrid of fast redeploys and guard, which is especially that useful, especially when using Silver Ash with the using 3 deployment drop talent. But yeah, usually from what I know, read specs is actually very sad. I won't know because I actually haven't read anything here. I haven't bothered because I actually don't have her. I'll probably read like it when I get her. But yeah, so I guess I'll talk about the talent, which is she gains arts resistance of 20, which I guess is useful, just that you don't really use her for the survivability. If you want to use for like survivability, Granny will be a better choice, I guess. You want to use her for damage, so it's kind of that. I mean, it's good to have, but it doesn't exactly help further boost what she does good at. But it's still a nice talent to have. It means like she can survive like 1 or 2 more hits, since she is also not that bulky. So maybe the 1 or 2 more hit can be more beneficial for her. I don't know. I don't have her, so I can't really compare her to like other vanguards. Funny, I actually don't even have bagpipe. I don't even have grinding because I never played the events, the grinding event. So yeah, I can't even compare to like the other 5-star DP on Q vanguards. So yeah, by no means bad, I guess. Talent, but it's a good thing that just that it doesn't help her except like further boost what she already is good at. So I guess I'll talk about skill 1, which I'm pretty sure is the same as Plume. Increase attack speed. I mean, it's overshadowed by skill 2, but it is actually very good for you to like burst out. It's very good, especially if you're maybe like in the early game, like trying to crowd control. Yeah, the attack speed is very useful when you're trying to like crowd control, I guess, since for you one-shotting them, might as well increase the attack speed, against weaker mobs. So this skill is generally more useful against weaker mobs. If you want to attack kill bosses, I say with attack speed usually, skill 2 is better. But yeah, I mean there is a need for skill. Just that skill 2 is better in like 99% of the cases. So yeah, skill 2, where you increase attack, and attacks do additional arts damage equals to 25% of each attack on top of the physical damage that she will be doing. As well that she gains 1 additional DP whenever she kills enemies. So instead of the usual 1, she gains 2 when she kills enemies with the skill active. So yeah, a very strong skill. So basically the attack and the arts, if the enemies does not come in too big of a wave, or you have like some way to hold the enemies within reach range, this skill is actually very good. It's one-shotting them, killing them, and then gaining 2 DP whenever you kill the enemy. So yeah, it can help accelerate the early game for you to get the DP to like deploy your other operators. As well as even against bosses because of the attack increase, which is very high at M3. But even at M's rank 7, it's actually quite decently at 70. On top of the 20% of the 25% additional arts damage, which I'm pretty sure is added on top of the 60% attack increase already. So it'll be 25% of 160% of its attack. Yeah, it's actually a very strong of a skill. Just that, how do I say? She's a vanguard. The attack is already generally not too high compared to other operators. So it's not bad. Anything, she's actually so unlike like other vanguards where they will fall off in the late game, especially since against bosses like Vigna. Vigna barely does any damage against Patriot, but she can actually at least do decent amount of damage to Patriot because of the additional arts damage that she can do. And then in the early game, the additional 1 DP that she gained when Q damage with the skill up will actually be very useful. So yeah, it's kind of what I like about what my friend like about her, and what I also like just on paper. I won't know, but yeah, that's how my friends actually like to use her as. Same as me. He likes to use her same as me. in the early game like a Vanguard to gain extra DP, and then in the late game fast deploy guard. And yeah, generally the stats is still weaker than normal guards, but not by much. So yeah, a very strong operator actually. It's that I don't really have much stories to say. Like unlike to be honest, none of them I really have much like stories to talk about since I haven't I either haven't used them at all or for Kal'tsit I haven't even used her that much. Especially since I really felt it's quite clunky. The 30 DP is quite clunky. So yeah. Here's how more yeah, so I guess I just continue. This will kind of be just me wrapping up for you, I guess. Skill 1, good introductory about the monster mechanic. Not going to be useful in like most cases. Skill 2 is a general skill to use with having good sustain with the increased attack speed of Kal'tsit, so more healing. Increased attack and as well the attack equal the block count of monster. So general skill to use. Very good sustain and very good damage you can do. Skill 3 is basically the boss killing skill, where master can basically just melt down the skill, melt down the bosses if they have low enough HP, which most bosses have. So actually pretty much seen people actually like one cycle like the Emperor Blade with monster. So yeah, a very strong skill for boss killing. So yeah, skill 2 Yana, skill 3 boss killing. And then Shining. Skill 1 is a very good medic with additional defense buff which can help like your operators to survive and sustain for longer, or to tank Arc's buffing hits if you want. But yeah, so skill 1, you can be using it if you want to like target priority heal one ally to the max, like your Surtur skill 3, but otherwise in most cases skill 2 is the general skill to go for. She not only heals but also gives the ally a shield that absorbs damage equals to Shining's attack, as well as increasing their defense. And skill 3 is skill 3 is a very good skill against bosses, helping them survive for longer by buffing their defense by 100%. So against bosses that does big damage like Patriot and the Hammer boss in Mario Knight's event, you can actually help them survive a couple more hits with the additional defense, which can be all the time you need to actually kill the boss. But yeah, so move on to Toddifons. Skill 1 is actually very useful for the defense debuff as well as the increased taunt. So if you're trying to target like one enemy that's a very heavy class, skill 1 will actually help you do that. So yeah, just target like the high priority enemy to kill the high priority heavy enemy while leaving like the low priority light enemies for your defenders or your defenders to hold for you to kill later. So yeah, that's kind of how my friend who has Toddifons to skill 1. And then skill 2 is basically the general skill that I use. Just big damage on top of big damage. Yeah. This is big damage on top of big damage. 70%. Yeah. So yeah, general skill that I'm using for. And I guess Chowder skill 2 does buff it by helping her to have the skill last longer. So yeah. And then Sesa. Skill 1, you won't be using it since it's outclassed by skill 2, even for uptime, it's generally around the same uptime. Skill 2. So yeah, skill 2 you want to be blocking the enemies in order to get the most out of it. It's useful against mobs since the high damage that Sesa does is actually very good. Actually since it is also further going to be buffed if you're blocking it or blocking the enemies further buffed by the talent. And the attack speed drop can be useful against bosses. Just that Sesa is outclassed by W in 90% of the cases. And then read. Skill 1 is useful for like the attack speed is useful like trying to clear out mobs of enemies and you don't have the DP to deploy anyone else. But otherwise skill 2 is very useful. Early game helping you gain additional 1 DP whenever you kill, so you gain 2 per kill. So if I help early on the late game, help you accelerating a DP to deploy other operators, and even in the late game, the high attack buff that she gains, on top of the additional arts damage that she will do, can actually help her up in the late game against enemies with higher defenses or even higher health. So yeah, that's kind of about it.
I think that's more or less all I have to, more or less I want to talk about them, to be honest. So yeah, I think this is it. This has been Dogcesy. However, I won't say it's a high priority to prove, since each of them is come up does serve some of a niche, but Kal'tsit is a very strong operator, and actually one that I recommend people to get. So not a high priority to pull for, especially if you already have Kal'tsit. So yeah, this has been Dogcesy. Bye.